Welcome to Empowered by AI, the podcast for women entrepreneurs ready to harness AI to take their businesses to the next level. I'm your host, Michelle Muncie Silva, founder of Innovative AI Studios. You may have left corporate life to start this entrepreneurial journey, but you don't have to go it alone. Here, you'll find a supportive community of like-minded women and an invaluable thought partner each week, as my guests and I share actionable insights you can use right away. So let's dive in together. All right, ladies, we have Tatiana with us today, and I'm so looking forward to this conversation. Tatiana, can you tell everybody just a little bit about you, and then we can kick this off with some questions?
Amazing. Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here. Was looking forward to this, Michelle. A little bit about me. Spent the first 2 decades of my career leading transformation inside some of the most complex, high expectations environments in the world. That was with Disney, with Louis Vuitton, with Neiman Marcus. And my teams and I deliver results across 9,000 employees, $5 billion in revenues, in operations, and often by turning around performance by raising the bar on customer experience and operations. And I am known for turning big ideas, big plans into real life execution. That's what I specialized in, specifically where customer service, operational excellence, and AI and tech intersect. Today, I spend my time consulting, helping companies in the very same way, drive growth, clarity, excellence. I also spend time speaking in conferences and other types of speaking events. And I do some advisory and board work as well as the podcast, which I'll invite everyone to watch as well, where we talk about AI in operations, specifically as it relates to customer experiences in operational excellence. Without the jargon, we call out it's all the questions you wanted to ask him. We wanted a straight answer to. And so I'm a founding partner and operations domain expert for the Aurora Retail Accelerator, which is this podcast. And in addition to the podcast, we help companies unlock AI adoption and actually make it work in the real world. Not in slides, not in theory, not in demos. It's real enhancements that align with how humans buy, decide, build trust, and so on. So that's the core essentially of everything I do, whether I'm advising a board, building a diagnostic, or speaking to decision makers, is this belief that excellence is not accidental, is not something that just happens. It is engineered, and it starts with asking better questions, the right questions, and not chasing every shiny object, not every new tool. So I'm excited to speak today about some of that.
And we're going to try to tease out some of those topics because they are so important. You talked about coming from that background in luxury retail. Now you're a consultant and a fellow podcaster. Happy to say that. What lessons from that corporate and industry world prepared you for this AI transformation that we're now swimming in?
Several things. In fact, leading hospitality and luxury retail really taught me the difference between busy and impactful, I think at a basic level. And to see where the operational mess is behind the elegant, the shiny facade, which is a critical lens for me when AI is being used as I watch many times being used to patch these broken workflows rather than really fix root causes. So that's one thing that I immediately, as I learned more about AI, realized how important that was coming from those lessons in operations. And I ran these billion-dollar operations where excellence was non-negotiable also. Every extra process, every approval step comes with a cost of speed, of trust, and also taught me, which is again very important for this piece, is how to move fast inside slow organizations. I have a friend that jokes that I've worked, if you combine the ages of all the companies I worked at, is hundreds of years, because a lot of them are companies that have been around over 100 years. So it's very interesting to learn how to do that. So AI transformation is no different. It requires this prioritization, speed, and most of all, you need precision, right? What moves the needle truly? Where are you solving a problem versus adding complexity, which is one of the top questions as I think about this. There was a top question in these operations and remains a top question when we're talking about technology, talking about AI. And I really believe that only if you know how to design systems that work at scale in analog mode, you will know which questions to ask and how to ask the right questions, the better questions of any technology. And the very last thing I wanted to mention there is research. There's a lot of research around how 5% of improvement in customer retention can increase a company's revenue over time by up to 95%, between 25 and 95%, which is incredible. And if you think about, if you apply that same thinking about how you are and for what you're deploying AI enhancement, that's when you really see that difference between deploying tools and impact to P&Ls.
And I know on the flip side of that, you've spoken about frustration with some of the more unqualified people in the AI space, and that statistic that 95% of agents are really qualified. So, what red flags do you think business leaders should watch out for when they're evaluating, say, their AI solutions?
We could do a whole an entire episode on that. Actually, we have done a couple of episodes about this. Is a very close topic that's very close to my heart because again, I watched that happen and it's like working with technology and operations prior, but now in AI, this is times 100, times 1,000 out there in terms of the red flags. 95% of these agents are not really agents. They're not independent. They've just put a different label on it. There's this little cartoon that one of my partners shared with us. It said, Mom, why are we so rich now? She said, oh, Daddy just named all the company where he worked. He just exchanged the word workflow for agents, and we're wealthy now. Our company's doing great. So it's a joke, but not really. So I would say that the key things for me is any vendor that's talking about 10x, 5x, magic, plug and play, that should raise alarms. Anyone that is, and I've said this many times, anyone that's promising you things and telling you what's happened without having asked you any questions about your operations, without having that experience in their resume, again, it's talking points. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're solving for you because they don't even know what needs to be solved in the first place. Good AI is boring in a way. It follows operational logic, is not sci-fi hype. We talk about, I think that all of us that work with it, we talk, and I've used this word that when the magic happens, when you see something, when you see something that happens that you didn't expect for it to happen. But it's a little different than purchasing something from someone who's promising you to make all your dreams come true. Just buy my tool, which is no different in some ways than what I've experienced 10 plus years ago with all of the CRM tools that were out there. If you bought the CRM tools, you manage your customer data, you have customers that will be loyal forever. And then we learned that the tool itself doesn't really do anything if you don't put the right processes in place, the tool alone. And so in the very same way that, and again, if anyone's promising you all of these things without knowing anything about your business, run. And then if they're selling you a 12, 18, 24-month roadmap, run faster. The real results are coming from modular, test and fail, fast solution, learn and iterate, good partnership with the right domain experts that will help you understand what you need to solve in your business in order to see these results. The technology is still evolving, it's still not fully stable. There's a lot of richness to it, but there are a lot of companies also that are banking on the way people used to work, right? You used to need to have a head of IT or head of technology that had these 24-month plus roadmap, and you couldn't do anything outside those roadmaps. Everything needed to be tied to it. It wasn't working very well back then. We could have a discussion about that. It definitely doesn't work now. I'll also say another red flag is that enterprise AI needs to understand when to hand off to a human. So if it can't scale intelligently, it's not agentic. So that's one red flag to understand. Asking the question of what powers the decision layer is really important. A real agent needs a memory, a context window, access to tools, not just, most of it is chatbots with a fancy wrapper right now. So again, asking those questions, having the right, being able to challenge. And that's not even the question, because I also have an issue with seeing out there, like, 10 questions to ask. If you don't know which answers to challenge, we're not going to get very far with that, with the 10 questions to ask in any case, which again, there are people like us out there that can help figure that out. Looking at the integration burdens, if they're telling you that you need to rebuild your entire stack, it's not modular, not going to scale. It's not going to work the way you want it to. And you're going to be in the hands of a company that, may go bust in 3 years or may change their mind on how much they charge you. The last thing I would say here is that there's some statistics on companies that purchased AI tools from vendors, from the right vendors and have the right partnerships. They succeed around 70% of the time. If they build something internally that doesn't have that domain expertise, they succeed less than a third of the time. So you have to ask these vendors about the track record, not just the roadmap, not just the deployment, not just the bells and whistles of the tools.
I love that you call that out because I fielded a question was just Friday. Somebody was saying, okay, hang on a second. What can the agent tool in Chat GPT, for example, actually do? I'm like, it's not agency. That's not, it's the name, right? The name of it. It really should be named deep research too. In my opinion, that's what it should be named. And when we look at that, it's like they slapped that label on there and got everybody really frustrated because they're thinking, God, is this user error? It's really not doing what I thought it would do, but it's really like wolf in sheep's clothing from the sense of trying to capitalize on a trend in I would argue, slightly unethical way. I would.
It's interesting you say that because I think that one of the things, and interestingly enough, and we've talked about this before, you and I, one of the reasons why I even started speaking about this publicly was because I was so bothered about so many of these one-liners and so much jargon and so many things being misused, to your point, not really in good faith at times. Like you're just slapping certain labels and saying certain things. As an agent, for example, as a very basic thing that if you remember nothing else is that if it operates with a prompt, it's not an agent. If it needs a prompt to operate, it's not an agent. You shouldn't have to work through and keep prompting it as it works. It's supposed to work independently, like various things that again, words being misused, taken out of context, the independence, the ability for some of these things that were really just chatbots before, they're not agents. You can't call them agents if they're not doing certain things, if they're meeting certain criteria. So I think that and it erodes the trust, the loyal, what people are already super confused. It's chaos out there. There's so many voices. It's screaming in a room full of people. I don't think it's doing us any favors when these kinds of things come out and say, hey, 95% of the people of what serious companies out there are calling agents are not agents.
And I know that one of your favorite topics to speak on is about that 30% of business that only humans can do best. Can you share a little bit about what sits inside that 30%, why it's non-negotiable to protect that?
Absolutely. It's 30% rule comes from my work and my keynote work and real world diagnostics work that I've done my whole career. This idea that only about 70% of your workflows should be touched by automation, by AI, that should not be human. The remaining 30% is where trust, creativity, loyalty are built. These should be really protected. And what is this 30%, right? Is intelligent escalation, is difficult conversation, is emotional context, is pattern breaking insight. That's that 30% is where you win hearts, not just wallets. Because that's really where is a secret that's not a secret. That's what loyalty means. That's how that is built. So I am very much pro AI enhanced humans. This co-piloting principle, we had an entire episode talking about specifically that. It says alien intelligence is not like us. We shouldn't be trying to make it like us. We should be co-piloting with it, using the very best that humans bring to the very best that the technology bring instead of competing who's doing best and what, because it's not the right use, in my opinion. It's not the best, most impactful use of it. And if you don't defend the value of this 30%, you end up with eroding this advantage that you build your brand on. And I see so much disturbing conversations right now about AI managing brands. It's not the right way to go. It can co-pilot with you. It can help, it can enhance, it can challenge you in ways that you wouldn't have thought about, but it shouldn't be managing your brand. There's research around general research that 32% of consumers will discontinue. They'll stop purchasing from a brand after one negative experience. In certain industries, is even higher than that. That's the kind of thing that would require, I would say that there's a moment where you say, okay, there's got to be a combination of human judgment with automation, with these processes in the co-creation there. Again, co-piloting, co-creation, call it what it is, but I think AI should amplify human excellence. It's not a competition. If your strategy involves automating away the very people, the very brand your customers trust, it's not sustainable.
And you've emphasized the scaling personalized high trust experiences with AI. So, what does that look like in practice, especially for a small business or even a solopreneur that doesn't have those enterprise budgets?
There's a few different things there. So that's high trust automation starts with making fewer mistakes. It's really looking where are your messy processes? Where are things like where are you bleeding? Is it time, revenue, trust? Where are things not connecting? Again, on the analog side already. So that's where slapping AI on top of something that's already not working is not going to solve it. It sounds obvious, but it's something that we talk about often, right? You got to start with the friction map. And then most businesses don't need an agent for every process. You need the one agent maybe for the most broken one, the one that really needs, the one that drives most of your revenue, the one that drives everything that you need. So again, when you're talking about huge fan of modularity, you're talking about you don't need a multi-million-dollar budget to put the right one process or two processes in place in your small business that could really change the game for you. But the key is, how do you find that one process? What's the right? And I would say the one thing, I didn't mention the question before, but I will mention here, the one thing always to keep in mind is you should have additional advisory, if not just from the people selling you the tool. Sounds a bit obvious, but your advisory shouldn't just come from folks who are selling you the very thing they're recommending that you buy. You should get, how do you say in healthcare, is get a second opinion. Get a second opinion, get a third opinion. You don't need a lab, you need lens. You need to understand where the business is losing trust, how to build the AI is going to fix that. And the piece around, again, another piece of advice I will give there is around the most effective strategies. They don't start with tests. Even if they're modular, they're not starting with tests. They're really looking at the orchestration of it. What I call it a bit of whisper system. There's a layer of intelligent escalation. You have fallback design. You have context aware action, keeping the human at the center, where the human needs to be at the center, and even when these systems run without them.
And you say leaders don't need to chase. They need clarity, not chaos. So what questions should we be asking to stay laser focused, like you mentioned?
What workflows drive 80% of the profit is one question. Or what's driving the pain? I think that clarity, I love the 80-20 rule. We should be focused. Leaders should be, there's so much noise and there's so many times you're chasing something that lives in the 20%. Not the time, not the place. I don't think anyone has the capability, the capacity, the bandwidth, or the luxury of chasing to 20% versus the 80%. So that question needs to be top of mind. What business outcome you must protect versus what business outcome you must improve? Clarity there is absolutely key, because you could be running over and breaking something that you cannot break by not specifying what that is. Do you have, and then more specifically related to the tools and agents, is do you have a clear escalation path from agent to human? When things go wrong or when things get complex, or it doesn't even have to be, I don't even like to say when things go wrong, but when things reach a level of complexity that requires you have that clarity. And one of the most important things for me is, are you designing for reality, or are you designing for a dream business? Or are you designing for a dream customer? Or are you designing, because that's a question that applies across the board. It has been my whole career, even without technology involved, many times the design is for something that only works in perfect conditions. You need perfect everything for that to work. You need full staff, you need full technology, you need the latest of everything. Show me the company that has that. So then, of course, it doesn't work. And many times I will argue, without looking at specifics of companies, without mentioning specifics rather of companies, that I would argue that a lot of what's these failed pilots today are precisely because of that. They're either solving a problem you didn't have to start with. It's really interesting how that comes together. It's chasing tools without diagnosing what's wrong first, the friction and the real root causes is like changing the tires, putting great tires on a car that has no engine. It's not going to go anywhere. Tech will not save a broken operating model.
And in your work with Aurora Retail Accelerators, what's an example of how tech plus intention, like you mentioned, has transformed either customer trust or loyalty?
Several examples. We work in this space. There's a couple of different key things that we do. One is around this piece on governance and really understanding where AI will play in your company, where it fits. And then in addition to that, we build tools. We build the tools themselves and we are agnostic of vendors as well. So it gives us a lot of freedom. We work a lot of lane chain, but in addition to that, we will look at the tool that's right for that customer. So for us, it was really important that we're not selling you we're not trying to make it fit the tool that we're selling. We're not trying to make that fit into your issue. We're really looking to build or to tell you, hey, this already exists, by the way. You don't need to build this. You just need maybe a couple of tweaks. And I think that that was something that was really important. The kind of honesty, obviously, is a foundational layer of the work that we do to say, you know what, in some of these cases, you don't need an agent or you don't need to buy something that is custom made. Here's where we can help you. But there's a couple of examples. One client was losing some high value client, not due to pricing, not due to competition, but friction, like issues with process and delivering and fulfilling orders and follow through. So we help map these breakdowns across the different touch points with the customers and identify these moments where the agents could really step in without not only damaging trust, but truly enhancing that experience. Where were the places we're in? So process mapping is a really big piece of the work that I advise in, because that in some ways is the basis of any improvement that you're going to make that's going to impact customer experience at any point in time. But again, we always work through the different things that we have advised. The goal is not automation. The goal is orchestration. The goal is to help. Most leaders really they need help with that decision stack. They don't need just automation in their processes.
And that customization, getting to know that business, I've heard this again and again. If that is missing, then it's not going to work.
It's not going to work because I'll tell you, it didn't work before.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 25 years. If I don't know what problem I'm solving, I can't just slap in a solution. It's obvious if you think about it in a way that is not, forget technology. It doesn't work. If you don't know if you can't figure it out, a big part of my work has always been around diagnostics and root cause and really figuring out like what's moving the needle, what's causing this, what could really solve it. This is the very same way. In my example earlier on the CRM systems, I have several analogies for this. The teams have worked with me that if they watch this again, I'll laugh. But one of them is if you never run before and you go buy the $2,000 pair of sneakers, you ain't going to win the marathon. Not going to happen. Not going to win the race. Or if you have this most amazing toolbox, which essentially is the same, but you don't know how to use any of them. You don't know what they're for. You don't know when to use each of them. There's that anecdote, which I'm sure you heard somewhere, but it's an old story of the guy that came in to see there was something that was broken. He charged $10,000 and he turned a screw.
Yeah.
And he said, why did you pay $10,000 for turning this screw? And said, it's $1 for the screw, $9,999 for 30 years of experience to know which screw to turn. So that's in many ways encapsulates, like, you got to have people with you who know which screw to turn, because otherwise you're going to be part of that statistic. There's another very scary statistic that just came out that 95% of the pilots are showing no results.
Yeah.
are showing no impact to the P&L.
And that is the issue right there. And you and I have talked about the importance of women participating in this work. Why do you believe women bring a perspective that is so urgently needed in both AI governance and adoption? And what's one challenge you would put out to the women who are listening to this today to get involved?
I think that there's a couple of things. I'll answer the first part first. I think it's incredibly important, as with any other area of business, our perspective. The very first one always is that we are half of the consumer base. So that's, for me, that's like it is an undeniable. And for in various industries, we make the most of the decision making around purchasing. So in addition to being half of the population who's purchasing, we also, in households where men are also present, we're making those decisions. So that should be reason enough. But beyond that, and talking about the skill sets that women have and around, when you think about customer experience marketing, ops, HR, where nuance really matters, complexity, and weighting different perspectives, women tend to have a fantastic skill set towards that. That, again, when working together, men and women working together on these things, we have numerous statistics to show that's the very best way that this can happen, that diversity that it brings. These are not soft skills. They are very important skills, and they're the exact competencies that are missing from most AI strategies today. So that's one thing. And most of these failures, as we mentioned before, they're not happening because the model is wrong necessarily, but the deployment context was not necessarily understood. It's a blind spot that women feel very well because of that difference of perspective, of asking those different questions, of thinking about things in a different way. And I'm not here to tell you that we need to make AI pink, but we got to make it responsible. We got to make it resilient. We got to be, it has to be reflective of more than one worldview. And then I have another talk, which you're familiar with, around the glass ceiling, which is that women are using AI. This is from Harvard Business School. Women are using AI 25% less than men, and the implications that all that will have in a variety of things, from the ability to be promoted, the ability to get certain jobs, to the wage gap, which is something that we've been closing so slowly over time, and to put us in that situation again. If we're not in the room, shaping policy, determining risk, asking the right questions, we're not governing. We're gonna lose that seat at the table. So it's so important that women are involved in this, that we are shaping what this looks like, that we are part of this. One of the things that this research showed, and that's my appeal to any woman or any leader of women listening to this, is we gotta break that pattern, that cycle of that specifically women are very familiar with, of only wanting to do something once you've mastered it. You only want to get involved in something once you feel you have enough knowledge. That whole statistic that men apply to jobs when they meet about 60% of the qualifications, and women try to meet 100% of the qualifications. The reflection of that is going to escalate so fast in all of this. And there are areas already, or industries like banking, like healthcare, where that gap is already widening so quickly. So it is so important that, if nothing else, women just got to put our hands on it. We got to jump. We got to jump in that pool. Maybe we're not Olympic swimmers right now, but you know what? Nobody is.
Yeah, no, the calling out of that is vital because I think so many are waiting. And it's, let's dive in. Let's dive in. Let it be messy. Let it be vulnerable, but let's dive.
One thing I heard from multiple women in one-on-one conversations was, I feel like I'm cheating if I'm using AI.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
it's not all my thoughts, it's not all my work, is not. And so we gotta get out of that. We gotta, again, your co-pilot is, what, are you cheating if you're driving? Would you like to walk instead? I think we're all driving by now, right? The car is I can do 100 times this principle of, I shouldn't fly because I'm cheating if I'm taking the plane. I'm gonna just take a walk over there because it's my own legs. if we start putting that into perspective, it sounds a little absurd, but that's something that's on our minds and the minds of women as we go through this, and is not nearly as often in the minds of men.
Right.
So I very passionate about more and more women jumping in the pool.
And where can these women connect with you if they want to talk more with you?
Oh, yes, of course. Listen, if it sparks something for any of you, if you're navigating a messy middle of AI, customer trust, operational change, I would love to hear from you. Also, on the personal side, like if you're trying to find a path, I talked to someone the other day, they're like, hey, where do you get your information? How do you learn about this? What are the things that you're paying attention to? I'm by far not the only one, but I am proud to be building this incredible network with someone like you and others out there. They're doing tremendous work. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. We'll have the links, but it's under Tatiana Ferreira. You can follow the podcast episodes. They get posted on LinkedIn. They get posted. We have a YouTube channel. We do some deep dives. They're usually short episodes between 8 and 15 minutes each about a different topic. So they're fast. We try to make them a lot of content and value add to that time that you spend with us. And let's keep the conversation going. Real, strategic, bias breaking, jargon busting.
Bias breaking and jargon busting. That's the vision. Thank you so much for joining us. We are all the better for having hung out with you. So we appreciate you.
It's a pleasure anytime. Looking forward to doing it again.
Thank you for tuning in to Empowered by AI. If today's episode sparked ideas, don't wait. Follow the link in the show notes to visit innovativeaistudio.com and download your free resource, created to help you put today's insights into practice. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes packed with more tips, tools, and inspiring stories. Until next time, stay empowered and keep innovating.